It may have been billed as a press conference to talk about the root cause of autism, but to me, it looked like some pretty stiff competition in a race for who is the most incompetent. If we put aside the fact that they don't even know how to pronounce acetaminophen, which is the actual drug name for Tylenol.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen.
Putting that aside, there are 4 things I want to highlight. The first is our so-called president said multiple times that pregnant people should just tough it out instead of taking Tylenol during their pregnancy. Not only is there not strong evidence to support this assertion, he is playing on the fears of pregnant people who, of course, want the best for their children. And he's trying to tell them that if they take even a very safe over-the-counter medication that might alleviate a little bit of their suffering, that would be the wrong thing to do. Not to mention that autism has existed long before Tylenol ever came into existence, which was not until the 1950s. The second thing I want to highlight is when RFK Jr., who is himself accused of being a sexual predator, co-opted the language of the Me Too movement to try to shame physicians into believing women who have been conned by people like him to think that their children have autism because of vaccines. Here's what he said. President Trump believes we should be listening to these mothers instead of gaslighting them and marginalizing them like prior administrations. Some of our friends like to say we should believe all women. Some of these same people have been silencing and demonizing these mothers for 3 decades because research on the potential link between autism and vaccines has been actively suppressed in the past. As someone who studies sexual harassment and teaches a course on sexual assault, I am deeply offended at his use of this language in this context. The term believe women is not believe women about whether the sky is blue or green. It's believe women about our experiences, not believe women when we're regurgitating conspiracy theories and falsehoods that have been fed to us by grifters like him. It is the job of physicians and other healthcare workers to dispel those kinds of myths and to actually educate people. But he wouldn't understand that because that's not what he does. And that takes me to the third point, which is where he said, research on vaccines and autism has been suppressed. Nothing could be further from the truth. Ever since Andrew Wakefield published a fraudulent study, which was later retracted, suggesting that there was a link between vaccines and autism, there have been numerous studies trying to see whether there actually is a link between vaccines and autism. And over and over and over and over again, the studies have found there is no link. I did just a quick PubMed search to see when I put in vaccines and autism, how many results are there? And there are over 1,200 articles. Does that sound like research that is being suppressed? The last point I want to highlight is multiple times the president said infants should not get the hepatitis B vaccine. He said wrongly that it is only sexually transmitted, which is not true. It can be transmitted at the time of delivery. It can be transmitted through needles. It can be transmitted through bodily fluids. And in fact, prior to the vaccine being used for newborns, about 18,000 newborns were getting hepatitis B every year, and only about half of those were transmitted from their mother. The rest of them were from other contacts in their life. The vaccine is extremely effective at reducing transmission from the pregnant person to the baby and preventing that baby from going on to have a chronic infection. And it is life-saving. This is from the Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, and they say from 2000 to 2019, hepatitis B vaccinations prevented about 22 million deaths globally from hepatitis B. Anyone who develops a chronic hepatitis B infection is at higher risk for cirrhosis, which means they may end up needing a liver transplant, and they're at higher risk for things like liver cancer. These are not minor problems that one can just easily manage. These are life-changing conditions that we can prevent with a safe and effective vaccine for newborns. In conclusion, I think DJT came in first place in this competition for most incompetent, and RFK Jr. was right behind him in second place.